Recognizing perspective. So, why is perspective so hard for people? Basically, your mind is playing tricks with you. What is logically right is visually wrong. Logically, you know one side of a table like this is just as long as the other side. But visually, each side of the table has a different length when you look at it in perspective. So, you have to change the way you look at things. Let's show you a few techniques. Parallel versus perspective lines. To understand perspective, you have to recognize the difference between parallel and perspective lines. Take a look at this ordinary office desk. People often draw it like this. One is in perspective view, while the other has parallel lines, creating an isometric view. Across a large area, isometric environments look artificial, like a game, but objects in perspective look natural and realistic. Perspective lines are hard to see unless you train your eye to recognize them. Perspective lines tilt as they go from one side of a rectangle to the other. With a hallway, the tilt is very strong and the angles change quite a bit. But with many common views, like this desk, the tilt is harder to notice. Pencil test. An easy way to see this is with an ordinary pencil or pen. It's a surprisingly simple test. We're showing a laptop, but any object will do. Take your pen or pencil out and tilt it to match the angle of a perspective object. Then freeze the angle and slowly move it to the other side. You'll see a difference once you get there. Some sort of triangle will form. To match the perspective line, you'll have to tilt your pen or pencil. The wheel. Since all perspective lines eventually go to a vanishing point, you can just imagine all the perspective lines are part of a giant wheel with the lines shooting out in all directions. Only some of these perspective lines will be caught by the perspective object. Once you realize all these perspective lines are part of a giant wheel that's far away from your eye, then you may find it easy to guess what happens in the middle. You can relax a little bit about perspective rules and worrying about where the vanishing point is. Instead, you just need to guess the middle angle between two tilting lines. Simplifying it so it becomes a game or puzzle may make it easier to understand the bigger logic of perspective. Closer and farther in 3D. Sometimes people lose sight of what is closer and what's farther. Look at an example using a simple file box. Start with the handle side that's facing us. All the lines on this plane go back to vanishing point 1. These points and lines are closer, and those points and lines are farther. This is true for any vanishing point. It may help to imagine your perspective lines with direction arrows pointing towards the vanishing point. Sometimes when people draw too technically, they effectively turn a solid object into glass. They start seeing another set of points and lines to be measured in perspective. Even though their intentions are good, it quickly becomes really confusing and easy to get things mixed up, particularly what's closer and what's farther. If we start drawing dots on all these different new corners, it's easy to connect the wrong points in funny ways and get strange errors. These bad connecting lines often show up as common mistakes.